Hey, New Life Church, my name is Michael from the Heber Springs campus. So I want to share something that God did this summer, actually through our mission trip. So our campus, we went to Brazil, to Rio, Brazil, to partner with a church called Light to the Nations. It was a really cool trip. We actually combined our student trip with that one. So as well as 8 adults, we had 8 students that came to that trip. And one of those students that was supposed to be there was my oldest daughter, who's 17. When the trip got moved from Costa Rica to Brazil, we had this conversation and we sat down and she's like, Dad, I really don't think I'm supposed to go to Brazil. I really feel like God's telling me not to. So I'm like, okay, I'm totally good with that. I respect that. She also had a trip planned with my mother at that time that she was gonna have to reschedule. So we're like, okay, why don't you go ahead, and we go to this trip. She went to go see a musical in Memphis with her. And so she went there instead. And while at this trip, I got the opportunity to speak at a student conference there, their Brave conference. And that was Saturday. And I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. It's the first time I've ever spoken with a translator. So Saturday morning, I was praying in the Spirit, and I was just totally focused. I was in the Word, and I was just getting myself ready and in the right mental space, if you would, to do something, especially considering how nervous I was. For Sunday morning, I was woken up several times by a phone call from my daughter at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Full disclosure, I looked at the phone, I was like, why is she calling this early? And hit the silence button, and I went back to sleep. Finally, at about 5 or so, I was woken up, and I looked at it and I started reading the text messages. And what happened is that night, my daughter had gone in because her appendix was inflamed and she had to have emergency surgery. So I got to see God really in this in several different ways. And two of the most obvious ways is if she had been on this trip, that would have been disastrous to try to figure out, get her in a hospital in Brazil and try to get all that taken care of and try and pivot and do everything that we need to do. I'm not to say that God couldn't have done amazing things through that, but that would have been extremely difficult. I honestly, wholeheartedly believe that God was telling her she didn't need to be on that trip because this was going to happen. But the other thing is, the way that I saw God move is the timing of it. Like I said, I was deep in the Word and deep in prayer on Saturday morning, and Sunday morning I was pretty much a wreck. I wasn't fearful. I didn't think that anything bad was going to happen, but my oldest she was hurting and she was in pain and she just wanted me there with her, and I couldn't be there, and it was stressful. And I started looking and kind of lining up the timelines, and when the pain started to get bad was almost to the hour of when I finished my message there in Brazil. So I love God's provision, I love God's timing, and I love the way that God orchestrates and moves through all things. So I hope this is encouraging to you guys. Love you. We'll see you tomorrow.